Namo Guru Be Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sanghaya Namo Guru Be Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sanghaya Namo Guru Be Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sanghaya Kande Alaye Gwenye Ndogane Ragai Shozan Bonde Shonze Anze Shonye Nyabo Gwenye Aloy Sandra Seodan Jebo Neo de Oje Ozo In the beginning, I would like to advise all of ourselves to take a moment and cultivate bodhicitta motivation or the altruistic motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of motivation, we should participate in this Lamrim teaching on the great stages of path to enlightenment, that brings together all the essential points of practice. No.
와야다 센자 담배 취지 참니 데려와가서 람링 학동 전부 가득제 어디 어다 제당다 학동 전부서야디 가르스나 제 학바데 통화 동인 무슨 동인 통화를 쓰기라와 제가 인상다디 디고래야 아니 그게 제 탈독 잡을때 가서 거와를 줘비 탈 톡번 잡을때 거와 두고야 하잖아 땡진이 모바일 두고야 레스 디톡을 라다 디 토부 인상 다 디피게 제 년봉안 지 갑디도 마성시 장견디 다 담에도 비 시랍생인들이 다디 때는 밥 윤디 발라 다 지게 뱀미지게 렉바 자다 뒤메거네 때는 막 판네 아니 자보지 캐줍ton도 뱀미지게 캐줍ton게 다소소소게 남지역이 시랍게 세게 아니 동리ton도 봐 또네 또봐 점도 마세베 응원숨도 봐 또네 되는 마땡지ton도 때는 밥 윤디 개발통도 때는 막 팝이 자베기 되네 땡주요. 안 다직 소소주 제 담에 같은 게 자도 그 람산직 들이 인디 마리 신의 람산직 비게지 제 가서다 너희도 마성시 매버지 다지 주 까바지 차기 여버디 다 배제 니번라고 지리
So we are back to volume number 3 in English translation of Lamrim Chemo, or the Great Treatise on the Stage of the Path to Enlightenment by Manjushri Lama Tsongkhapa. And we are on page 221. As Khensur Rinpoche said, that this particular section in Lamrim Chemo, it really focuses on developing what we call special insight or vipassana, in Tibetan called hlakdong, which literally means seeing something, extraordinary, if you will. And what is that extraordinary thing we are referring to? Just to be simple, it really refers to emptiness or shunyata, sunnata, ultimate nature of phenomena. If we see emptiness of phenomena as it is, then we are seeing something extraordinary. And that insight into emptiness is called hlakdong, special insight in English, and vipassana pertaining to hlakdong. So why do we really need to understand emptiness and develop this special insight into emptiness, if you ask? As you know, that when we look at the very bottom of matters or issues concerning our existence in samsara, samsara or cyclic existence, what we come to see is that our grasping at self, Tenzin, is the real culprit. That which prevents us from getting out of samsara is nothing else but one's own grasping at self, in Tibetan called Tenzin. Okay? And if that is the root cause of our being in samsara, then what is the most effective antidote to uproot it? If you ask, as we often talk about this, there is no other antidote except developing wisdom, realizing what we call emptiness or selflessness. That is the most effective, direct antidote to counteract our own grasping at self. And so in order to develop that kind of a wisdom, if you will, first we really need to make efforts to understand what selflessness is or what emptiness is. In other words, we need to establish that ultimate nature of phenomena as it is. And with regard to that, many great masters of India and Tibet, they made their best of efforts, put the best of their brain intelligence and wisdom into use, and many of them really non-conceptually realized selflessness or emptiness as it is. Yeah. So based upon their own experiences and realization, then they wrote many works or treatises explaining what it is, okay? And also to capture their own realization in those works. And that's why we have many outstanding works authored by great Indian masters of the past and many great masters, Tibetan masters as well. And so we are very fortunate indeed to be able to engage in study of many of these works and to try to understand first what is selflessness or emptiness, or how best can we really approach it and understand it. Of course, as ordinary beings, we cannot be presumptuous that, in our efforts to explain what it is and to understand what it is, we are not going to make any mistakes at all. In a sense, being in samsara, it seems to be part of our existence that the errors and flaws are in our very nature. So we are likely to make errors and mistakes in our explaining this phenomenon, emptiness, and try to understand it. But that being said, acknowledging that we are also very lucky to be able to study texts such as this great Lamrim Chemo, and especially section on establishing what is emptiness or selflessness, and how can we as individual practitioners really access that reality and develop really deeper insight into it. Enormous.
어제비인다 디네마 건축이나긴 다다지 유튜브에는 단디데 딘지 맨로선 삼지 마 유비 온도다나 디 카톡데 데센도와 오만나와레 장세야스도가 딘조 디나로 데니만 고스 그 따라와
나도
디 갈성교선 다디 공도야 아니 비게지 돈담데 유메 쩨베 돈담 탐바세야 다 돈담바 맞아 그 담바니 얘기 나래 탐바세야 이렇게 돈담디 근데 긴족 유들이야 아니 비게 되지 롤파이 잡이나 니지 지와래 돈담바 파베냥 자 이시지 NPA지 주바 탐제디 개변냥 자 이시기 뭘 너나라 돈담디 제가 직제 야 대대 멤버지 주바티 제스네 메루 냥자 이시 그래서 뭐 돈이 뭐도 배 냐자 이시 마임베 다제 투성 건성기 리식라 제스 tumbe 돈담시안도 그 단이시네 디레시 요리 다템도기 유티 돈담바티 아니 비게지 유기 돈담바티 다티마 투성 건성기 시랍기 유진레마 딘데시네 단tin 돈담바시야지 계제 시에요리스 아 근데 시에버티 안에 디카도기 시에베다지 또겐 바발로 속베 식대담도 마세베 다 지야 아니 비게지 벤투준제베 이제 셔버 망고 여러와 좀도 시지도 타네 디담 나온다 보지 근데지 임바됐다 예 시지도 디담 나온다 보지 시지도 타네 아니 오만나웨기디 시지도 장부 인사리스
So we are somewhere in the middle of page 221, volume number 3, in the English translation of Great Lamrim Chemo. So what we talked about in last time is, what does ultimate mean, Dun Tamba in Tibetan? Okay, because we talk about ultimate truth, ultimate reality. The Tibetan word is Döndam Demba in that, ultimate reality or truth. So there is the ultimate term coming. Or we said that nothing exists ultimately. There is no ultimate existence. Right? As we use the word, the particle rat, right? Right? There's nothing that exists ultimately. So how do we decode the meaning of the term Tamba or ultimate? Okay. And there are a couple of ways to do that. And we try to do that based upon works such as Blaze of Reasonings. Okay? And so now we are also referring to Kamal Shil's Illumination of the Middle Way, in Tibetan called Umanangwa. Okay? So what is said here is, according to Khensur Rinpoche, is that one way to explain ultimate, that which is ultimate or ultimate, Döndamba, is from a subjective point of view, from experiential, phenomenological perspective, if you will, lived experiences. So that is, if we look at this deep experience of transcendental beings, Aryas in the state of meditative equipoise on emptiness, right? They're completely absorbed into nothing but emptiness. In this particular meditative state, these Arya beings or transcendental beings we call Pakpa, they non-conceptually experience or see emptiness as it is. Yeah. So one way to understand ultimate or Döndamba is referring to their subjective experience, phenomenological experience. From that perspective, we can say Döndamba is that which is accessed directly by the transcendental wisdom in the state of meditative equipoise on emptiness. Okay? So which means everything else, that is not directly accessed or processed or perceived by that particular wisdom of Aryas is not ultimate. Okay? So that's one way to understand it, and that's a prominent way to understand it. Now, another way to understand ultimate Döndamba is, trying to understand it from the cognitive, ordinary cognitive experiences or perceptions, which is like, when we study what it is, right, or listen to teaching, as we say, and then we contemplate the meaning of that teaching, and then we meditate on the ascertained meaning of that teaching. Through these processes, we as ordinary beings, I can cognitively, right, we can estimate, if you will, right? We are not going to access the ultimate directly, but intellectually and cognitively, we will be able to process, that's what ultimate is, right? So from that point of view also, from our ordinary processes, cognitive, engage in the study, contemplation, and meditation of emptiness, we can talk about ultimate. So ultimate is something that we could access intellectually with ordinary people, which is directly accessed by transcendental beings or the Aryas in a higher level.
돈은 디인 버는데 다티 돈다 도도로디 단다티 틱디기 돈다로디 디 샴르마 디인 버는데 순도가 디인 버는데 딱가리 버는데 그랬잖아 야탁베 tö바당 삼바당 곰발레 주위 시바 탐지 친지 말로비 유진인비 철 예배 철 동탐바 시 차와데 동탐바인비 철로 세야되었다. 다 가르치는 동탐바생이도 공도 기분 나신게 아니 동탐바 탐바세야디 가르치야 다 동탐바를 동탐바 유세 다 간제 현반이 이제 담반이긴 좀 줄바 사야도 간제 대체비어다 타둑주베리 시 세메기 아니 이게 니동 강시 타둑주베 레시 참아송한테 동남담바이 맞아 히템반이 나래 동남담바이 타니 주베 리히 테메니 동 가지 타니 주지지 리히 참마초라 타니 주지지 리히 참마송아 군접된 베팅 다 담바니도 어디리다 탐지에 조게 아래 주담아바 시갈로 담바니 시담바니 니 조게 아래 얘네야 다지 야 코란도 코란 소소소게 적절 밑은 말이 적절 상 통그 말이 단 대송바 얘네 대선에 양탁베 통스 다 토발레 중에 시랍 삼발레 중에 시랍 곰발레 중에 시랍 디게디 가르르잖아 즉 알로 망보 유바 저쪽 날 가르르잖아 실제 말로 배 유진 샤디와레스 디 유를 투반면은 잡지 로코랑 비직 텐덴라고 치지 말로 배 유진 샤디와레스 대송도 유진인 배 차르 근데 인상다 대통 담바 가서 인배 차르 동담바 동담바 해셔원 디 동담바 인배 차로 다 동담바 세야디 다다디 거사티 가르서나 동담바 세야디 다 동반이 저 샤비나 다디 로트즈기 디니 친지 말로 떡비 유전 인상 아니 막 가서다 디 유전 인상 다디 전도 떡비 시럽 들려야 동담바 신마 시에버리 숨고 살아봤디 동원인배 채로 시에버리다 다디니 어디 가르송에서 어리 다디 파지 큐나디가
So we have a passage quoted from Kamal Shil's Illumination of the Middle Way towards the bottom of page 221. And Khensur Rinpoche read a portion of that passage, which I will read and then translate the explanation given on that and pertaining, related to that. Kamal Shil's Illumination of the Middle Way says, the meaning of a statement such as production does not exist ultimately is as follows. All consciousnesses that arise from study, reflection, and meditation on reality are accurate subjects. They are therefore called ultimate in that they are the ultimate of those consciousnesses, and unquote. And then the passage still continues. So this actually provides a scriptural citation to support what earlier we already stated. And as Khensur Rinpoche explained, that in every Buddhist schools of thought, or schools of tenets, if you call, drupta, they try to present two truths: ultimate truth or ultimate reality, and conventional truth or conventional reality, right? Pramartha satya, ultimate reality. Samvritti satya, conventional reality. So every Buddhist schools of thought said, well, we have figured out how to present these two truths and differentiate them from one another. Of course, when we compare and contrast their positions on the two truths, we find a lot of differences, right? And they're not all talking about the same thing in many ways. And so how do we understand ultimate? One way, as we said, is from the subjective experiences. In this particular case, we assume the ordinary people, with ordinary people, engage in study, reflection or contemplation, and meditation on reality. That's ultimate. Yeah. In many Buddhist scriptures, when we try to define what is ultimate reality, Paramartha Satya, and what is conventional reality, Samvritti Satya, the definition is ultimate reality is that which is what called object of ultimate analytical wisdom, okay? And in relation to which that analytical wisdom is a valid wisdom. Okay? So that is a different level of wisdom. And conventional reality is defined as that which is the object of conventional wisdom, and in relation to which the conventional wisdom is a valid cognition or valid wisdom. Okay, so that's how the true truths can be defined and differentiated from one another. And so that analytical wisdom, which pertains to the ultimate reality, it is still a cognitive process, right? And that analytical wisdom could be a conceptual wisdom, if you will, that arises from listening to teaching, or the modern term is study, right? And reflection or contemplation and meditation. That's why often we talk about three types of wisdom, right, arising through these processes. Wisdom arising through listening to teaching or through study on emptiness of reality. Wisdom that arises from contemplation or reflection on emptiness, the teaching. And wisdom that arises through meditation, in relation to the ascertained meaning of what it is. And these wisdoms are accurate wisdom, valid, okay? They can be valid. Not that all wisdoms are valid, but these wisdoms, dealing with ultimate reality are accurate wisdoms, and these subjective wisdoms can be referred to as ultimate. So from their point of view, their objects constitute ultimate, okay? Ultimate, that which is ultimate. So that's one way. That's what the Kamal Shila explains in Illumination of the Middle Way. And so, to be simple, as we said, what is ultimate? One way we can say, well, ultimate is emptiness. Emptiness is ultimate. And then we have to explain, why is it ultimate? Well, one way to explain is because it is the truth directly accessed by transcendental wisdom of Aryas in the state of deep meditation. Okay? Nothing else is accessed directly. So therefore, it is ultimate from that point of view. Or it is ultimate because our own analytical wisdom arising from study, contemplation, meditation, dealing with this wisdom, can be accurate wisdom or valid wisdom pertaining to that reality. So therefore, it is ultimate. Okay? So those are the perspectives which help us to define Tam, right? Ultimate.
다티 등의 대송도가 임베처로시 무슨다 규베 집에 개발이 유대스 다돈 담바티 조선 고선 레직 다돈 저기 내 저거 유디 규베 돈 담바 될래야 무슨야지 돈 담바 개발 매세야게 마게 번다고 찍다 규네 야지 저기 개발 만다고 저기 이 유초그래 송고 살이 근데 스트레스는 다지 돈 담바 등도 이시 담배 돈 담바 될라 아니 대 유디 침배인다 돈 담바를 개와 매세 안 되고 찍다想想 아니 비게지 돈 담바를 개와 유미기 주비 딱거라 주지기 릭바 주지기 릭바스는 면도 주지기 비게지 로티기 째네 딱동바 째네 미니비기 아니 돈 담바지 임바 인상 돈 담바디 미니비기 딱비 깍비기 이제 갈수올다 매배 돈 담바데 갈수 깍까네 뒤 돈 담바 인상 아니 균에 아니 딘데지기 딘데지 다 간제 돈 담바디 배지 무수 규숨지 권에 다동 그리지 나반나도지고는 때네 매배 아니 돈 담바지 차게 와리시 직송그 맨로 직세라발라 대다가 왕게 있으러다 대다가 왕게 오번 대다 탐제네 마제보 코나라 시소 왔다 세상다 이시 대다게 섭중 투중 다 근데 로 대다게 공기 시베 아니 비게지 치지 말로베 로 대다게 아니 가르테네 왕게 코라 되게 왕게 오번 대다 탐제네 다 돈 담버 마제보 코나라 신지 말로베 시소 시네 송고요 사라바 말 돈 담버 코나 신지 말로바 시소 시네 와다티 송고요 사레스.
And now to complete the reading of that passage quoted from Kamal Shil's Illumination of the Middle Way, they differ in whether they work directly or indirectly, but the force of their thought makes it understood that all these things are strictly not produced. Therefore, we explain the phrase production does not exist ultimately as meaning that knowledge of reality does not establish that these things are produced, unquote. So the explanation given on that is, so when we hear statements such as production does not exist ultimately, or there is no ultimate production, another way of saying is, so what are we talking about, and how do we understand the meaning of such statements, if you will? And what we have discussed just now are there two ways to do that. One is, production does not exist ultimately, or there is no ultimate production directly. And that's only possible, from the perspective of transcendental wisdom of Aryas in the state of meditative equipoise on emptiness. Because they see there is no production, there's no ultimate production. If things were produced ultimately, then the transcendental wisdom of Arya beings should be able to find it, say, things are produced ultimately. Just because they couldn't find it directly, that's a direct evidence from their experiential point of view that there is no such thing as ultimate production, or production doesn't exist ultimately. So that's one way. But we could also do that indirectly in sense through intellectual reasoning, right? Through logical reasoning, if you will. And that's the way we are trying to do here. We apply reasoning, that's what we call ultimate analysis, right? We use logic and reasoning in our ultimate analysis whether things are produced ultimately or not. Through analysis and reasoning, we come to understand cognitively and intellectually, right? There is no such thing as ultimate production, or there is no such thing as things being produced ultimately. So that's established through intellectual processes and reasoning. So that's indirect evidence, if you will, right, to establish that reality. So bringing these two processes together, the take-home lesson we have, whether it's a direct evidence point of view or indirect evidence point of view, is that nothing in the world is produced ultimately, right? Because we checked it through two cognitive processes, direct cognitive processes of Aryas and indirect intellectual cognitive processes that we use through reasoning, ultimate analysis, and we couldn't find things are produced ultimately. So therefore, the judgment and the conclusion is there is no ultimate production, okay, period. Yeah, period. I said period like that. There's no period like that. Period. So, nonsense.
Osh, toche, datne kalsen dustana, shesoche. That you didn't teach an answer, Serva. Tenants in the gate to Ton Tamber. The gate to Ton Tamber, Jawa meadows. Ton Tamber, Jawa meadows. He Chavala, he Chavala, he Chawa ne. Yantabi, he Jawa Madribe, he. Hebranjuro, said Garsungerson, not going to ship it in the Inzan, Ton Tamper Jawa Madrup, Ton Tamper Madrup, and the Daja Kajaki Rictada Madrup yet carries Kari Maduri. Look, Ganging or Maduri, Shakbe, Madubari. Tindig in Jogji, Ton Tamper Madrup Siaki, Jogji Lotti, Candidi, Kundum Gelondra, Kundum Madu, Kundum Jogi Lord, Tontam Jogi Lord, Tontam Jogi Lord is. Chetan, Chetan, and in the young tagbe, he is that. Can you come to heavy changing malubi, Hiba, changing malubi, Hibe, that are Jebretana, Ton Tamper Java, Meba, any Dubaris. Ton Tamper Java, Messi at it, and the law changing maluba, Ton Tamper, Koran, Ton Tambasia, Hiba, Mini Yungeti, Dubaris, he here in Euro, he sung batan. Tuno, that the Conde Heaven of Chahavi, Sarva, Conde Heaven, talking about socks in the here, are a Teta, Tata the Oma, Tantan to hear the Oma Navika to share here, Tungus, Kuni, Midube Kerry, Midu, Conde Share the Jetty, Tumbudu, and Sumba Sares.
So if, in other words, if we ask this question, how do we know that things are not produced ultimately? Okay. From what perspective, from what point of view, if we ask? Is it from the perspective of what we call analytical wisdom that deals with ultimate nature of things? Or is it from the perspective of analytical wisdom that deals with conventional phenomena or reality? Yeah? Because those are the two levels of truths we are dealing with. So when we say nothing is produced ultimately, we are really talking it from, or looking at it from, the analytical perspective that deals with ultimate reality, not the conventional reality. Okay? And so that perspective should be kept in our view. And because we have so many cognitive processes, some are dealing with a variety of phenomena called conventional, variegated phenomena, to be fancy here, or that we can, we have cognitive processes which deal with the ultimate nature of things, But those two cognitive processes, they function at different levels, right? And they deal with different topics and realities, if you will. And so we don't want to, mesh them into one another. And so as it is stated here, towards the bottom of page 221, this seems to agree with what is stated in the Blaze of Reasons. In other words, earlier we have seen how Baba Viveka, in his work called Blaze of Reasoning, explained what is ultimate or Döntamba. Yeah. Now we have seen Kamal Shila, another great Indian master, explaining it in his Illumination of the Middle Way, Umanama, right? But these two explanations, they match, they agree with each other. Okay? So that's what is being stated here. This seems to agree with what is stated in the Blaze of Reasoning.
That's it. That's the 아니 비게 담당 단지 아주 단답하게 돼 엄마 나에게 책임 봐. 다티네 마오마 겐지 야 엄마 겐지 간데 생기게 단지 엄마 나에 값을 해봐 대점도 마세베 엄마 겐지 간데 값이야 해야스 티 간데 해기도서나 다치 알리니엘 토론으로 체니야 토반도 지금 가지고 독반적이라 밀 독반신 샤기여라 봐. 이 독반적부터 가르쳐서 오나스 제대로 안 힘에 봐 인연 발라. 딱 가르쳐서 랑 힘에 랑을 동담에 때말 가르치기 어렵다. 가르치는 랑 힘에 봐 인연 발라. 근데 독반적부터 거라 잡으래. 랑 힘이 매세야 돼. 가르치는 매세요나 삼네. 근데 이제 독반시 잡으래서. 근데 독반시 사태베게 다 강산을 붙이길래야 다디 독바드바 세고 여러다 란시기 멜룽 딘데지 매비 인터 란시기 매버 레이션 파 즉 셉드도 마스지 세고 여러와 독바사 대대비 있나다 디그 독바티 생계 매비 인상 독바티 답비 주름분에 세 대대들어와 아들 바 세비인데 간데 세기 여러잖아 임 다디 독바티라 봐 다티 독바티게 세야라 치카리어서는 양탁브레 히나 히자와라 속바 히 자와 뭐데 양탁브레 히자베 데니 뭐부터 쇼베 제소 빠고 똑바로 자와 데코나니지 뭐라 샤데 아테 다른 gente 매비 인시 독바사야 요 말이 가르쳐버린 인데세요레스 양탁브레 히나 해자와서 속보 못에 다 강콘드네 뭐래 근데 세디걸다 양타고 해자벨 다티기 가르땡 게 알았잖아 단디 양 해주 때 밑에 카드 쓴 거도 와 제디 다티기 가르쳐 자체기 알았다 나도 저기 말 라비 있나 다티 통다 저 주자 제고 알았다 가리디 있잖아 다티기 가르땡 버렸잖아 뭐부 떡지 휴베 제수 박베 똑바로 잡아 대권한 얘기 몰라 자대 뭐부 떡직스도 말에 지바들이래 지 당아도게 남배 흉리신 다치당 흉망보 참아 시 시배 흉이 나이래 남배 흉이 나이래 망부 쪽을 간도래 참아진지 시기도 와 참아진지 시기라래 참마데 가래스나다 남배슝니 마셔 유도발라 참마텔라 니시그리스 참마 망본 도게 요아리 자랍배 남배 중위나 중로로 마셔 두다 있는 참마 도게 망고 요아리 얘네 다디 그 제비나 참마 니시그리스 아니 피게지 무슨 참마싱이 찍다 제수박에 참마 니시그리스 안 참마에 되니서 아니 피게지 장애바이래 장애바 뒤지 양지 가지가지 참마 망고요 가지가지 무슨 찍고 참마를 매번 등게 된리 봐 로도도 야 로도도 봐 갑이 칠도 참마니 요거야 주제 가래서나 샤자니도 와스 테메 샤자텔라 니도 샤자니 셔 샤자니 여보 원게 참마니 줘 그래 샤자텔라 가서다 고주르게 찍다 원주르게 찍다 나도 옹복은 숨게 또시 나도 지 딸 제지 또 동네게 추 망고 가도 들어봐 원주르스 들어봐 대야 멤버 아니 다 띠띵 고주르스도 나도 옹복은 숨게 또 파도 베기 때문에 추 망고요 다추 망고요 나는 나도 제 풍보 리띵도 제비나야 나도 사실 이제 풍보 튼도 나도 몇개서 근데 또 그요 알아 레디나 야 디팅도 미타버세 한다고 다음에 타라세 한다고 저도 간도 또 특고요 말아 저도 또 발라 인지 면지 응어부 똑죽질 땡고요 알아 응어부 똑죽질 따질 땡네 또 고요 알아 세상 다다 디가 응어부 똑죽해야 되다 따나지 이제네 단 요건도 사시하네 요건 무슨 듣고요 알아 돼 뒷담바 민도 왔어 메티세서나 땡대 인비셔스 깨고베 다 tinde기 또베 뉴고 템바르메바 똑베게 지바 참마티 아다 티스게요레 응어보 똑죽지 똑죽베 똑브라 사베 다 디기 또야 데 가르도리 지 응어보 똑지 죽베 지바 되기 죽자든 제일인데 또야 안도 가르도 그래서나 데코나니리 다 똥니세야들이스 다 똥니세야들이스 어디 다 간지 결설다 yang takbal te moya ke te yang takbal te yang rikpa yang takbal ten ne te khona ni nge ko ba rashi ji madu ba am rangul madu nge ko ba nge ba te khona ni tela ene kharsigirta o kasa o rashi me ba ta yang takbal ba thon tambar me ba sen o te khona ni te ni ba tela ane rashi ji me ba te sigiri sen sungge sare.
At the bottom of page 221, now we have a passage quoted from another work of Indian master Kamal Shil, which is called Commentary on the Difficult Points of Ornament for the Middle Way. Madhyamik Alamkara Panchika is the text. And so the passage quoted, a portion of which Khensur Rinpoche read, which I'm going to read and then translate his explanation. To the qualm, in what way is it that things do not exist intrinsically? Shantarakshita said, although I didn't hear that name in the Tibetan, but okay. In reality, the term reality refers to the status of things just as they are, something that is known by an inference based on facts. This is the same as saying that things are empty when you analyze them just as they are. This explains the phrases in reality, ultimately, and so forth, unquote. Now, the explanation given on this is the way, it is approached in this particular work of Kamal Shil's, trying to explain the difficult points related to ornament for middle way. It's but raising a question. What a qualm is, because we are human beings, and we can raise what we call some critical, we can do some critical questioning here. So that's what is a qualm has been raised, and which is, in what ways is it that things do not exist intrinsically? Because often we talk about that, right? Things don't exist intrinsically by way of their own nature. The Khensur Rinpoche used the word rangshin is by way of its own nature. That seems to be the term in the Tibetan text. Or here it's translated as do not exist intrinsically, which usually we say rangwen duba, from its own side. right? Okay. So when we deal with this matter, we encounter the term called yang Dakpa. Yang Dakpa literally means that which is perfect, or and here translated as reality. Okay. So when we talk about reality, we are talking about the status of phenomena, right? The status of phenomena, and how can we establish that ultimate nature or the status of a phenomena is by way of inference or by way of reasoning. Okay? As it's stated on page top 222, something that is known by an inference based on facts. Okay. Now, a whole lot of explanation given on this relating to that. Khensur says that in Buddhist literatures, as well as in some non-Buddhist literatures, we find a lot of discussion about tsema, valid cognition, or pramana in Sanskrit. Okay. So it's not only the Buddhists who talk about pramana or valid cognitions, but other non-Buddhists who talk about pramana. My first footnote in many Hindu philosophies, not necessarily in other that I don't know. Okay. But when we talk about tsema, pramana, valid, we can talk about broadly stated two types of valid cognitions. One is what we call direct valid cognitions, right? We call it ngusum tsema, ngusum as in direct, right, non-conceptual. Yeah? And then there is the inferential valid cognitions. We call it chebak tsema. Inferential valid cognition, it is based upon reasoning and logic and facts, evidence. It's evidence-based valid cognitions. Yeah? So when we talk about the status of phenomena, ultimate nature or the reality phenomena, we do it from inferential valid cognition point of view, okay, according to here. And that's the one way to do that. And so what's the difference here, if you ask? And why do we have to have direct valid cognitions and indirect valid cognitions? Why do we need these two things? Well, because when we look at phenomena, there are two types of phenomena, right? These cognitive processes exist because there are different types of phenomena. So the two types of phenomena are, we call manifest phenomena, for lack of a better word in English. We call it, in Tibetan, ngunjur, means that which is manifest. Okay, so we have a manifest phenomena, objects, and then we have kogyur, hidden, concealed, phenomena. Yeah? And so our sensory perceptions or the processes, so they engage in their objects very directly, non-conceptually. Yeah? So we can talk about direct, valid sensory cognitions dealing with their objects. Are you with me? Now, we are not saying that all our sensory perceptions are valid, okay? So don't interpret it another way. We are saying that among our sensory perceptions, there are those which are direct, valid perceptions, because our sensory perceptions do not use or require or cannot use reasonings. They simply see things as they are, right? Visual consciousness is its object, auditory consciousness hears its sound. There is no intermediary reasoning and logic and all of those things. Okay? So that's one kind of valid cognitions. Okay? Then we have inferential valid cognitions, things which are not manifestly present for us, but we have to know them through inference. We said, yes, because of this and that, I know that exists. Okay? So we use some inference and logic, and those are hidden phenomena or concealed phenomena called kogyur in Tibetan. Okay? So as Khensur explained, that all of us are here, right? We all have our physical body. Okay? And our physical body has certain characteristics, and we can directly access our own body, right? And many features of our body. So there is what we call direct valid cognitions that we ourselves have in regard to our body, right? Our body and its features. But there are certain characteristics of our body which are hidden from us, concealed. They are not manifest, such as subtle impermanence of our body. Right? We need to use reasoning and conceptualizers and thinking that our body disintegrates moment to moment. Okay? So that subtle impermanence of our body requires what we call logic and reasoning to access it. And likewise, our body has selfless nature. Selflessness characteristic of our body is hidden from us. So we need logic and develop inferential valid cognition to understand subtle impermanence of our body and selflessness of our body. Are you with me? Yeah. So those are the two types of phenomena we encounter: manifest phenomena and hidden phenomena. Or I'll use another example here. In the monastic debates, we talk about sprout. Nyuguchejin is the subject, right? For instance, is empty of true existence. Temperamete, that's the predicate, right? Why? Because we said tenderlibechin, it is a dependent arising. It exists dependently. That's the reasoning. It is a pratit samutpat. Okay? So we are using reasoning, dependent arising as a reasoning, to establish certain reality of a sprout, which is the ultimate reality, that it is empty of true existence, isn't it? But the sprout is something that we can access directly with our sensory perception, right? We don't need a reasoning say this is a sprout, right? Look at it, or maybe change your glasses or something. No, he didn't say that. My footnote, okay. So sprout is something we can access directly, but the emptiness of true existence of the sprout is a hidden phenomena that requires logic for us to be able to access it. So in pertaining to the sprout, we could have direct valid cognition of the sprout, inferential valid cognition of the emptiness of the sprout. Okay, so that's what we are dealing with here. All right, Mons.
다 지바티게 따라보지 그니 지바티 유들아 테코나니 지기리. 어떻게 참대가 되도가 테코나니 넘버 제나 테코나니 이제 네 가르사 넘버 제나 동시세베 타지고 다 진대 시바티게 아란신지 마두바티 제대로 제네 근데 제제 제베게 돈톱으로 때 테코나니티 아니 피게지 투투니 안다보지 테코나니 그러니까 란신지 마두 제네 테코나니데 투니베 때 진짜 다티고 가르스나 란신지 마두베 동시베다 타직스나 다 타니로 그래스 단지 공도 란신지 좀 지다리 있는 바세야 되게 다 랭고라고 랭고스네 미도 따단도 때 란신지 좀요 말이 지바티게 인데 때윤디 발라타 란신지 마두 티 똥버리 란신지 주베 똥버 인상 다 란신지 마두 차버리 센타티 타니로 네 지그리 센 송고여서 타듣고 세야지라발 다 디샴데 디가서다 데니 테코나니도 동탄 넘버 히샤발라 소과 넘버 히도 단디게 다티 가르토가다 계제 티기 테코나니도 당 다 테코나니 간데시 유메 제네 니베 테코나니선 현야 아니피 히샤발라 속게 난다 양 딱바라 마두바 땀바라 마두바 짜다 랑노네 마두바서 속게 망보여레 티 틴데지 티 마두바디 테니 피게지 다티 넘버 히도 시아치 다디 엄마 젠지 간데 갑수 히두티 조샤스
So we are on top of page 222. This is the same as saying that things are empty when you analyze them just as they are. This explains the phrases in reality, ultimately, and so forth. In another way, terms such as reality may refer only to knowledge of reality because that is what it observes. Knowledge of reality, not conventional knowledge, provides the understanding that allows us to say that things do not exist intrinsically. So explanation given on this is, so when we deal with issues such as whether something exists, right, by way of its own nature, intrinsically, ultimately, truly, objectively, in and of itself. We have different ways of talking about these things, right? Temper Druba, true existence, Rangshinji Druba, existing by way of its own nature, Rangwena Druba, existing from its own side, right? So we have all these different terms we throw around, and to find out whether something exists intrinsically, objectively, by way of its own characteristic, in and of itself, to be able to answer that question, we have to go through inferential processes. Are you with me? Yeah, we have to depend upon reasoning. So which involves what we call ultimate analysis. When we do ultimate analysis to figure out whether something exists intrinsically or not, at the end of the analysis, we do not find, right, that which we are looking for. Instead, what we find is that things are devoid of intrinsic existence. Things are devoid of true existence. Things are devoid of objective existence. Are you with me? But we are able to come to that understanding of reality only through inferential cognitive processes, by doing analysis, by doing reasonings, isn't it? Okay. So that's what we're saying here.
어다지 다 공디 주비네 다 간제 야 공디 셰베 다 간제 셰베이나 응고 또 죽지 집에 집아 신시어 봐 예수박 봐 신이디 될라야 아니 지기 양제 투섬 고섬 투중게 시하로 섬중게 시하로 건중 시하로 섬게 나네 시랍디 디 가리레세서나 섬중이 시니 흉니 셰위가레스 섬중이 근데 결로디 제발라 섬중이 찹세네 시기와레스 다든데 섬중티 나도게 요삭게 지 사장들한테 가봐 팜으로 쟤네 가봐 가려와 요르잖아 섬중신인데 아니 비에지 속다 숙면이라 섬중 민두 쟤네 송게와레스 텔레 섬중 메고야게 주제한테부터 가려야잖아 그런 땡이니 시쳐와레스 속다 숙면에 감도들 땡이니 시쳐에 맞아도 마san시 즉 삼론도 붙이 팀부지 땅고 삼 동로지도 람산피게 즉 땡인데도 뭐 주네 직비게 직 제반도 붙이 해야라고요 말이 니도 마san시 콕제네 근데서는 나한테네 지 속다 숙미 감나라 삼중매에 된데 해버리세 어디 투동도 붙이 된데 니스
Related thing that has been noted here is, so when we talk about inferential valid cognitions, chebak, okay, in Tibetan. So what is it exactly, and where does it fit into when we think in terms of listening, contemplation, and meditation? In this framework, where does the inferential valid cognition belongs to fit into, if we ask? According to Buddhist scriptures, they said it really belongs to samba, reflection or contemplation. Right? If we use monastic debate logic form, it means every instance of inferential valid cognition must necessarily be, part of contemplation or samba, reflection. Okay? And then we can say, can we find it everywhere in the universe, or is there a boundary line where we could find or couldn't find? It says we cannot find inferential valid cognition in the form realm of existence and in the formless realm of existence. So we do not find inferential valid cognition in those two states of existence, form and formless. Why? The why is because in these two realms of existence, the beings, seem to be, absorbed. They often are absorbed into whatever they do, in the state of absorptions. As soon as they start to think something, they absorb deeply into the object, so they, in a sense, are lacking ability to analyze things deeply. Okay? So analytical skill is not their cup of tea or coffee, really. They just, as soon as they think about something, they just absorbs into that, right? So therefore, it is said, thing is in meditative stabilization rules those two realms of existence, absorption. So therefore, inferential valid cognition, we can say, does not exist, in those two states of existence.
다디 음악 genji 말이요. 음악 genji 간데디 시바티 딘대지임을 차샤라봐.
no,
다양 시주 찍어 송구여서 양나세야티.
no,
잠대도가
no,
양나 양탁비 제바 코나 양탁발라 속에 대죄대 대맥바임비 셔 세야 가르쳐 비하잖아. 다 투성 고성기 시랍다 돈레스 세야티 양탁비 NPA 딱 무고도 양탁비 시바 저tor 시바 통돌아 양탁바 시베 대 주기도 와스 티가레스나 양탁바 세니테 다 템버 마투베 통담 템바 코란으로 저기 양탁바 샤니 투성 고성기 시랍로 속바다 돈조기 디 미바임베 차네 미바임베 차네 아니 투성 고성기 시랍 통돌아 양탁바 세리스 대주리기리 대주브리스 자자 주리니 지여버다 나도기 제 제대한 감나 아니 대주는 거리 또균이야 이송이야 답 남배 형기 마셔버지 근데 대주리데 또균이야 또배 윤이 여디 저런데 산제 마이나 산제 자주 조겨 민망불 산제 명이야리 야 군조 그런 거 매나야 그 메카제면 군조 좀 보세요 안다고 어따진다 맨게 제 조를 차잖아 말때 시다다 말했잖아 니만다 버지 차샤베는 다와 갈서다 그래서 봉전세 한다고 시시전세 러봉전세 한다고 전에 대주 제자나 대마 죄네 나다 간지 투성 고속 시랍 되게 유대 유쟁기 말다버지 리샤 숨겨서래 임베처럼 양탁비 시베스를 삼배 왕게 란셰메바 인지 군접지 왕게네 마이노 시자베 양탁데고 진디게 돈 탐번 줘버때 양탁바 콘디 시베 양탁바 상바 대다게 왕게 줘버리 마도 군접 돈담 땜바 임바데 적지 로라버데 양탁바 시베게 단다 투성 고동 시랍게 다간지 되게 가르쳐 그랬다 타둑 조지가 로 대다기 조그레 마도 그때라 양지 덴베 군접 시바 랑가베 군접기 시바 랑가베 온게 대단 조그레베스나 조가 말에 시베 시사베 야 탄니르부터 책이래 송요래 다 듣고 세래.
So on top of page 222, where you read, in another way, terms such as reality may refer only to knowledge of reality because that is what it observes. Knowledge of reality, not conventional knowledge, provides the understanding that allows us to say that things do not exist intrinsically. So explanation given on these things is, sometimes the term could be liberally used or has been used. The term is the reality, yang Dakpa in Tibetan, even to refer to, knowledge that arises from listening, contemplation, and meditation, pertaining to the ultimate reality. So that's kind of liberal use of the term, and for example, in the Tibetan language, an ordinary person who is not a Buddha could be called by the name of a Buddha, right? Sangye something. Well, he or she is not a Buddha, but the name says you are Buddha, right? So term can be liberally used to refer to, but the actual Buddha is different than somebody with just the name Buddha, So in the same way, the reality term can be liberally used even to refer to what we call knowledge that arises through listening, contemplation, and meditation. But that should not confuse us to say that, ultimate reality could be established by way of some, what we call conventional wisdom. No. As we said earlier, ultimate reality is established by the analytical wisdom, right, that deals with the ultimate nature of things, in regards to which it is a valid cognition. Right? That's the whole definition we talked about. Conventional reality is that which is established by conventional wisdom, in relation to which it is a valid cognition. I know I'm saying a whole lot of things. Maybe we should all take 2 months and go to study in monastery. So because the term is liberally used to mean those things, we should not conclude. So therefore, conventional wisdom can establish ultimate reality. No. It has to be established by analytical wisdom that deals with ultimate reality. It's a different, what we call, department, if you will. Okay, belongs to different department. No.
다 야구만도.
No, no, sir.
다 단지 가르쳐 이게 가르쳐 엄마나가 내다 단다 디파도 가르쳐 그랬다. 군습기 온기 샤 군습기 온기니 많이 넣어서 받으셔. 같이 삼주도 마찬가지 나랑 삼주로부터 다다들 내가 건디 휴 살아래 임베이나야다. 뒤에 면도 상상지 휴 살아래. 아야 넘버 2에 삼주티게 틀에 sabdendra bujeda chi tinde yuna ta chi yang songnai degrees.
So Khensur said he would like to stop there and yield the floor to you for you to ask questions, clarification, share your wisdom. He said, as I said in the beginning, as an ordinary person, even though I'm trying my best to explain these things, I could still make errors and mistakes, you know. So I'm not presumptuous that I know everything and all of that. So I did my best to explain it. So maybe, because we have so many people here, perhaps you might have a deeper understanding or better understanding of this. So feel free to share your thoughts or ask for clarification. Yeah. Yes, mic is in Annie's hand. Anybody would like to? Give to Pam, yeah. Anybody would like? If not, I insist they give to Yalatmir.
Well, I have a qualm about a qualm.
Okay, good.
About the qualm, the Kamal-Shil's qualm. It says to the qualm, the quote on page 221 at the bottom, in what way is it that things do not exist intrinsically?
Right.
And Shantarakshita says in reality. Now, I thought Shantarakshita was a Svatantrika.
Okay.
That implies that he accepts the intrinsic existence of things, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And also, going back to related to that is.
Okay, let's take one by one. Otherwise, I might
sure.
get confused, and then you get not clear answer. That's why I said I didn't hear the name Shantarakshita in the Tibetan, so I had a qualm. But I'll check with it. It's a good thing to check, you know. Danda dirwa kuna tokde shwe di takide toklong che dwa. Danda dirwa kasa dirda. Oma jengi kane nal toklong che brwa.
No.
Oma jengi kane nal toklong che dwa.
No.
Di toklong di le kata dirwa karsa gore rangshin ji juba sa jo marwe. Darwa sidar in slab senasa. Pebegi dinalya chabenalya danda di loben shiwa so ko sungwa skemi dwa. Sendwe shizudwe.
Re shido pon la biar ba.
Di
sung pa ba.
La.
Ti sung in jira ba.
Di sungba ina sa da ko tokwa de. Tokwa lo tokwa yo sa kona rwa. Di yima ina ani shizu pon lob di ane ka sa ora da dirwa rangshin druba rangan druba kelenge marabes. Ina ani di kan di takda digi mi do sa rwa. Shida rangan in what way is it that things do not exist? I want to hear what is in the Tibetan exactly. Because if I translate it, it goes into my translation. Then the Uma Jengi Toklong did it long.
Karse oma jengi toklong de la karse kanya thong thambar thera ba. Kanya thong thambar kyawa me ba hi chawala so pa mo des. Tela nga thondin di in des ya to.
Yangjuch Canada kan
la. Yang ta be thoba tang samba da gomba le chwe che thamje ne chinji malo bi yu jen yin be.
Maro Khensur be ya petas.
Lo
Khensur be petas. Uma nangwa marda. Uma jengi kane
Ale oma jengi kane oma jengi ya di tere ba tanda di oma jengi jen korang su hiri mi to wa ti in de ba su wa oma jengi kande de ta lo bon she ba to sung yin de ba long she ba to sung yin na ta de ji sung de ta she ya tin de da yang she dang she ba to sung ge de kande di se ne kande le dang kar de ona 제대로 ran she me ba yin nya ba la ran she me ba tin de kande ji ge de Ranshe me se kecha mangu che de do. Ta gan tu penna ba cha sha na ta ti korang de ranshe me ngandu rap chi na ngandu me chi la 나를 죽부이나 나를 죽부이나 다 그런게 비게지 가르쳐 그랬다 나한테 매번 잡지다 켈랜디 와리디 얘는 나한테 죽고야기 예 주된데부터 간데라 세서를 해야 돼 비지 지금 면도를 삼으라봐 그런게 켈랜베 온디 체네 말렘베 온디 체네 라힌지 두바 매부터 가르치네 디스기요 말이 동원도 체네라 힘에바티 가르치네 송고야레스
시도간디 렌 조간디 샨다락시더베 시바서베
다티 제 이냠발라 아니 피에지 곤도 달로도 야페 흉망고치 자네 양 타버 히샤바 모디 양 타버 히샤바네 데네 뭐부 톱지 슈베 땅 뭐부 디 라시지 메베 줍진저부터 가르잖아 뭐부 톱지 슈베 디 라시 메베 리체네 코란을 봐 레타브리스
랑디 컨설무제 konda ta chida yang ta ba se di sungen di shiwa so chaga ya mar wa dinal shiwa so chen mi de wa
duwa tinte chen kaya yo mar tanga du uzu ro chen ne di kan de di shiwa to men ro sam ba ma to tinte chen kaya mi de wa mi de wa
chen mi de wa no
mi de chen mi de
ta dan da ken so mi de sha chida rangxin me se de rangxin se de rangwe la ba ni duen chu de chen de de ma re
la
chida rangxin me se jo wa
라리
chida rangxin me la ba da chida rangwe ne me la ba ni la shan de go ma tanda chi ba sa go cha
그게 차게요
자 인지 디나리아
차그리
랑외네 메스티도 와 랑외스 메스티도가 딜렌디 시조 샹다 락시다기 라브레스 라브와 샹다 락시다 랑외네 시고로 와서 꾸지면 도사
아 얘네 되게 돼
디 소르정 코난 똑바서 라 디나 디도 비스도
내가 근데 메두 다티 디 제비인다
after all that figuring out we figure
랑셰지 메시야티
yeah
랑셰지 메시야티 랑오니 메시야도 가제니 찍바리 팔티디 그러니까 엄마 시와토라고 지 사셨나 랑오니야 열이 랑셰지야 열 아니 가르쳐 그랬다 제 가르쳐 그랬다 가제니 숨 두고요 랑오니야 열 랑셰지 돈 담버 다 가르쳐 매야티 돈 담버 민두 아니 비게 템버 좀 민두 양 담버 텐데 민두 마도 지게 랑셰지 좀 진도 젠다 두두께졌지 마 삼을 리용 것도 와 시와도 어디에 삼을 리용 것도 와 시와도 랑셰 만대베 온디 전에 양 랑셰지 매바 근데 전에 가르리 전 라바이나 랍기 유지라 봐 그런 데부터 가르리 랑셰 매세야 돼 사람도 랑셰지 매세야 돼 가르치기 어때인데 내 잡인데 딱 랑셰지 되베 똥바 인다 랑셰지 매세네 시기 요체는 발에 좀봐 맨로섬
so sometimes I had to be a little out of my nature, aggressive to stop considering somebody so that we get exactly what we're asking. So otherwise, he will end up explaining all the things again. So the point is, I was checking with him whether the name Shantarakshita is in the Tibetan. There isn't any name spelled out. Okay, so in the English we said Shantarakshita said, right? That's your qualm about qualm is because Shantarakshita said. So according to Shantarakshita, you're right. Shantarakshita accepts intrinsic reality, right? So he couldn't have said, intrinsic reality don't exist because that wouldn't make sense unless hypothetically he says plain. Okay, those of you who said there is no intrinsic, okay, maybe that, right? So therefore that's that. Okay. So Shantarakshita said accept intrinsic reality but not true existence or other kinds of existence that we talk about. Right? Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. No? Okay.
Going back to the last week, we talked about Baba Viveka's heart of the middle way.
Where?
About there was a quote: "Earth and such are not elements ultimately." So this kind of relates
what
to this
page are we on?
On page 220.
Okay.
At the bottom.
Okay.
And there were some questions about that last week.
Oh yeah, the Baba Viveka's earth and such are elements ultimately, right? Not elements ultimately. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, exactly. Is what he's saying is that Earth, does that mean that they do not exist ultimately as elements, but nevertheless exist ultimately? Because according to Baba Viveka, being a Svatantrika, they should also exist ultimately, right?
Oh, okay.
So is there a distinction between...
No. Okay.
Is there a distinction between existing ultimately as elements and existing ultimately?
Okay, so let me get, I understood you right. So you're saying that Baba Viveka accepts ultimate existence. So
yes.
is he saying that these things do not exist as elements ultimately, but ultimate existence does exist. That's what you're saying, right? Okay.
Because he seems to imply that they don't exist ultimately.
No, yes.
But
yes.
it's actually what he's saying is that they don't exist ultimately as elements, you know, having the qualities and the functions of elements, but nevertheless they exist ultimately.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense at all, if it's possible.
Quran Tiwa Niba de Shue the that Tunda Kashing in Tiwa, Khensur Mche. Quran Tiwa Niba Shue the Tring Sungjo Mareta, Tunda Ni Sunging Sungjo is Kapti Roa.
Ali.
Dinal this Sumerta, Tanda Lobe Dirova Legne Chegis, Woman Yingbunalas, Tapic Chaksho Chicks in Elmedro. Lobe Legne Chegi, Woman Yingbunala, Sala Soba, Anakasorata, Juma Digedi, and the turn Tambar Yomar Sumberwa.
No.
Did 6 to 1. Sala Woman Yingbunal.
Oh, indeed, Tara. You.
That or the Lagu years on Koran Tiwa de Disigore, Lobe Legne Chegi, Sala Soba Juma, Digedi, Kasota, Juma, turn Tambar Mondus Labazam of the Chen, turn Tambar, Juba killing your Marvesa, Lobe Legne Chegi.
Young Marva.
La.
The one days get on Tomber to killing me. Lengo Marva.
No.
Chetanta, Lobon Dinti, Korangi, Rangon to Batan.
Lobe Legne Cheda, Jupiter
Rangish to the Yorba.
La.
Rangish to a kill and Yorba. Lobon Dinti.
La Ranshin to killing her.
Yoga.
Only.
You thought that Rangish to the but the Tenju Rangish to make it near to the guy in Duvala, and the Korangi, Ropantaboti. Korangi in Dubai, Tombarkin by Nabotkin by Labgrumato, Rahim, Medicine, Lagayo Maration, Tisigurvata, Seta and a salad soap, but Tombar Matupte, and P. Such a table in Bichel. You want you go over? Ah,
no, sir.
That message Tombar Matute, such a tip by Imbicher, quite tiny the talco yard. Should you Tombar Matute, Langy server in Bichel? I didn't carson Joan and the ta, with that yes in Tago, right? I don't temperament with the Korangi killing your tati.
Rangshingi, Rangshingi Druba, the Rangan, Robert Langdenjegi, the Rangshin Druba killing this with the Rangan Druba killing or okay, so Khensur Rinpoche re-explained that this is, the quote from Baba Viveka's Heart of the Middle Way, where it reads, "Earth and such are not elements ultimately," right? So the question you asked about is, actually, Baba Viveka accepts, does not accept ultimate existence. He accepts what we call intrinsic existence, Baba Viveka. And so he is debating with Prasangika Madhyamikas. When Prasangika Madhyamikas said, elements do not exist intrinsically, Baba Viveka said, wait, no, I would say, because I accept they exist intrinsically, they don't exist ultimately. So that's why he's differentiating his, standpoint. So, any other? Yeah. Somebody over there, where? Yeah. Yes.
If we accept emptiness definition as lack of inherent existence, could mathematics be an exception? Mathematics say the simple example of the area of a rectangle. You take the width times the length, and it can be proved by any third party. You could say it was a human, a construction of the human mind, but it's not like a novel. It's not like a fairy tale. It's not like a work of fiction. It has independent existence. Or some people think that the laws of mathematics exist independently. It's not a construct of the human mind, but the human mind discovered it.
Okay.
So it could be said to exist inherently
Okay.
or intrinsically.
Okay.
We talked about doing a ultimate analysis.
Mm-hmm.
So with a little bit of time remaining, can we do an ultimate analysis of the laws of mathematics?
Yeah. Yeah, I will translate to him, but I don't know whether Rinpoche will be able to talk with mathematics, but I will translate to him.
No, just whether not the specific of mathematics,
Yeah.
but whether they exist
yeah.
inherently.
Yeah. Kurangi kandi shwe di di sigore. Ta ngazo kari sigore sena ane shwe kanya ane ta rangwe ne duyo marsla barwa. Rangwe duyo tongba res, ta tongba ying namsha shige yorwa. Tete kala kurangi sidu kala ta tsiba yorwa, tsi yinge. Tsi yingwe ne tewi na ane mango chigi ane chigi pena chigi drodang cha shamana ko rawang du drubo da rangwe ne drubo drubo yore sa rwa. Di kola nga ta nge kandi shwe shos la rwa. Yan Khensur Rinpoche yan tsi kola sungu yun mene rwa. 가서 지 생각에 gebdu kala pena ngazo khangpa ba ji tiksa jabe na khangpa de thushi tas karin ji yor wa digi ta che da shung le ji ko ba na khyo gi ja jön ra ba de ji na pap thu ko yor wa ni de pap thu ba di ane kar so chu jung ra ba de ne ke mar ba chum se se je ke mar ba khong go ne zo tak da re de yor wa ji de ka la ya ane ji gi nam sha de ge di ngazo mi sue sha ma le le be ko kari ye ba ji ngazo nye ba re su wa ji de ka la ji gi do dan de ge di ane rangwen du ba da rawang de du ba ru chre de wa ro wa di kan de sa an de le yang an zhe da dang de dang dam de che ba yin na an dan tu zhe test de dang de che ge sang la a de dang dam che ma je Khensur mu je ji ro dang su nge me na dang dam che ge nge kan di shu la yin ba ta de ga ji ro dang
ji ro dang ha ko yi ji ba lo mang ko xie yin di xie dang ji ro dang ha ko yi 다 엔지니어링 되게 잠능날 엔지니어링 시에네 계다 전부 히라 지기리 그런도 지자게요래 지잠네 강바 됐다 붙이길 토대인들이지 파피티 야자종 인데 저기 나라 자가 된 것도 세메틱 되게 세고 붙이 제기리 러닝 붙이 세고 붙이 인제 다 세고 붙이 돼 나라야 아니 피게지 강바텔라 계란게 tombe 자 같은 누구도 심한 같은 누구도 세메디 같은 누구도 도룩 같은 누구도 야니 되게 전에 지 담윤도 그인데 세골 부디 뒤 나리야 이제 전에 지 담윤도 와라 아니 딱가 세 두고였다 들 도대다 두고 지맛대다 두고 디랑 세지 되게 온기 되게 전에 해기와 말했어 그러면 뚜뚜비 그 지디에 간에 정보를 되나 뚜니 这个填了去来呢，对你嘛帮，像俺是西边用的，他们这西边用的全部都是讲的帮些嘛，这个对钱嘛用的这个嘛都叫扣这龙洞这不这个呢，地差的你下不这个热的要嘛嘞，我都是差个要嘞，可可能长不一样，可能拉不一样，这个这呢，现在用的这就烂年的这呢，这些地大单的主要的嘛都这个了，可地。 피게지 근데 이번에 랑원을 두시아분도 저기 토네 남샤디 차기요 말이스.
Khensur Rinpoche says that he has some idea about mathematics because back in his monasteries for many years, he got involved in doing some math, for his monasteries. So he said, he agrees with you that, for example, an architect, right, before you build a house, right, can do the calculations, for whatever the building plan is, and then what are the materials needed to build a thing, right? So based upon that, can tell you exactly, right, what are the things needed. So that part is not a fairy tale, that's not a storyline, right? That's just a fact, okay? But that does not mean that the mathematics is intrinsically existent or independently existent. The reason is mathematics is a system. A system consists of many parts, So it is dependent upon those many parts, whether it's the equations they build, and it's the mathematical knowledge. I mean, we talk about that. It's a knowledge is something that's built upon so many parts. So if something is a systemic or system, then it cannot exist intrinsically and independent in and of itself. Independent intrinsic existence, by definition, the way we say is something that can stand alone without depending on anything else at all. Whereas the mathematics is a system, he thought is a very dependent, nature. No.
Oh yeah.
So thank you for sharing your thoughts. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
If you strip it down to the basics, mathematics is numbers.
Right.
Just numbers.
Mm-hmm.
System. And then you narrow it down even more, just plurality.
Mm-hmm.
Twice plurality. That's what I cannot say. But it's what it's based on. There's
So,
plurality and numbers.
for example, when you say, okay, numbers, let's see, give me some numbers and see.
Numbers. Mathematics is numbers. Figures.
You could just say mathematics.
Okay, 2, number 2, right? Number 2 is a number, right? But 2 is only 2 in relation to 1 because you can't have a 2 without 1, isn't it? So where is that number coming from? Out of a blue 2?
You can count things.
Right.
Numbers is
Yeah, you can count things, that's right. It's like a facts, you can count them, right? It's facts, right? So, right, because there are many facts which are like that, but there are relations, right? In order to get $10, you must have all these other things, otherwise it's not going to get 10, So it isn't that, yeah. Okay, so before I forget, I was told that the next Saturday, daylight saving or whatever, time changes. Of course, GSTDL will send a reminder through the group list, but those who are not on the group list, we just want to remind that we need to change our time by the evening of Saturday or night of the Saturday. Okay, so that, so fall is what? Fall back, right? Okay. So, dire nge dan de shu ge zhen ba je, sa pa ba shung ma de le yang tu zhe ju zhu de wa. Nam shi ju go ya ro wa. Yang tu zhe ju chu zhe ge shi ge bu go. Ya ma zhen san ni ma go lo zhe ge ro wa. Oh, de ge dan de lang chen shi deng liu ba. I'm just telling him why we don't.
啥边你没给结果个
拉点嘛，呀，啥边别签了。
啊嘞，当俺这个呀，吃这个呀，这个呢，
老大爹的给说什么去爹的，那签人就签了是吧？你们通知我了吧？你们通知我的签人。
呀，OK， 呀。
Okay, so we'll do the Manjushri prayer in Tibetan and others, and then English and Vietnamese. Kange lo de jenye jende nyenda namda rabsebe jenye donggon jishin seche nyeje toga lebam zen kanda sebe zunrar mare medon dongen jesebe rozo kunla buje yanla zhuje yangden son roda chedo nyemo nyelo leje chado zhen mare mese dongen nyogo jenye jenze rade Dene daje saju tasun yunden hunzo jase tu chuda chuni jende talu
musen jande yang la
de omara baza na Omara baza na de zende jeje jara wase je dalu demo memba rase tada denje shunglo toba ye lojo na wa ze do zo denba nyame denjo zan ze lojo tome penjo chuden dibam kara yaje songa wa dende gele sebe pendo Sanjo Ningbo Shebe Shulang Ze Namda Sudin Namdang Joye Nyamdo Shebe Bande Lame Shabla Sowa Chudu Shebe Kera Ledang Ze Nyamda Jogun Jobe Semye Sanwa Nimye Nenjo La Shebe Lozang Yangden Bebe Ningma Ngaye Rangdang Chedenbe Yigwe Meshe Tongwan Dekong Yadem beze gudo shebe che yangzhe He who has the intuitive wisdom that disperses the clouds of the two obscuration, like the sun shedding a glorious light that's utterly pure. He who understands all meanings whatsoever of perfect realization, from whose heart emerges the lotus holding the books of the perfection of wisdom. Those who live in samsara are the prisoners of ignorance. afflicted by the darkness of suffering, looking after all sentient beings with compassion, like a mother looking after an only child. You have a melodious voice of 60 tones. Roaring like a dragon, you wake people from the sleep of conflicting emotions, freeing one from the iron shackles of karma, dispelling the darkness of their ignorance. Thus you wield the sword which cuts down the shoots of suffering, primordially pure, having reached the 10th bodhisattva level, the perfect body of highest qualities, the foremost son of the Buddhas, adorned with 112 ornaments, major and minor physical perfections of a Buddha. I bow down to you, Manjushri. Please dispel the darkness of my mind. Om Arapazanadi. I beseech you with the loving kindness of your omniscient light rays to completely dispel the dark ignorance of my mind, thus giving me the intellectual courage and intelligence to understand the teachings of the Buddha, their elucidating treatises and commentary. O peerless savior and supreme teacher Shuddhodana's son, O the 17 masters and adepts, Nagarjuna and Asanga and so on, O Dibamkar as well as Sovereign Father Tsongkhapa, gloriously appear here today to grant auspiciousness. On the great path leading to the heart of enlightenment, you have traversed by means of the perfect threefold discipline and have enhanced ever higher the realizations of the enlightened qualities. O glorious Guru, we offer our supplications at your feet. Pray return gloriously to propagate the teaching of Lobsang by tying well the sash of monastic disciplinary precepts and generating the altruistic intention to free all beings. Engage in the Tantric yogas of the 2 stages. Think of the unbearable pain of the sentient beings who are enveloped in the forces of 5 degenerations, and to open wide the lotus grove of the Buddha's teachings. May your reincarnation appear soon as a source of merit for us.
Tôn sư quang vinh tứ chúng thịnh cầu đó xem lại. Xin mô trở lại quang huy truyền bá giáo pháp lô sang, bằng sự thắt chặt đai dưới nghiêm minh thiền môn tự viện, rồi lại khởi tâm từ bi đại nguyện giải thoát chúng sanh, tinh chuyên hành trì du già mật định nhị phần chứng đắc. Xin luôn thương tưởng thống khổ bất tham ba cõi hữu tình, thương bị bao phủ trao đạo khôn nguôi mãnh lực vũ trượng, đưa tay rộng mở bát ngát vườn sen giáo lý Phật Đà. Xin mau tái sanh nhanh chóng hiện hành phước nguồn dưới chúng.
Senjo Rinpoche, Ma Je Bang Nan Je Ju Je, Je Wa Nyang Ba Me Ba Yang, Gong Ne Gong, De Ba Ra Yo, Do Ni Da Wa Rinpoche, Ma Je Bang Nan Je Ju Je, Je Wa Nyang Ba Me Ba Yang, Gong Ne Yo, Sa Je Be Je Ju Je Me Do Zhang, Ri Ra Mi Je Nin De Yin Bang De, Sang Je Jin Do Mi De Wu Ba Yin, Zhu Ge Nan Da Xin, Che Ba Yo, Kang Ri Ra Ge Gu Be Xin Gang De, Pen Zang De Wa Ma Lu Zhong Be Ne, Chen Re Se Wang Tenzin Jia Zuo Yi, Xia Be Se Dian Ba Du, Dian Ju Ji, Yi Da Ma Bu Ru Ra Na Ma De La Gong, Ni Ya Da Ya Mi